I remember that morning so clearly. The kitchen felt small, but it was our home, a place where we felt safe. My wife, the woman I loved more than anything, was sitting right there across from me at our little wooden table. She was holding her favorite coffee mug with both of her hands, almost as if she were trying to find some warmth or comfort in it. She had not taken a single sip of that coffee. By the time the conversation really started, it was probably already stone cold. She looked up at me, her eyes filled with something I could not quite name yet, and she spoke very quietly. She said, "I am pregnant." In that one tiny moment, my whole heart felt like it was going to burst. I felt every single emotion a husband usually hopes to feel at least once in his life. I felt surprised. I felt so excited, and I felt a sense of disbelief that this was actually happening to us. It was like a beautiful dream coming true right there in our kitchen. But then the air in the room seemed to change. She took a really deep breath. It was a kind of long, heavy breath that makes your stomach drop because you just know that something else is coming next. Then she said a sentence that changed our whole world forever. She added, "But Jason deserves a chance too." The room suddenly went completely quiet. The only thing I could hear was the sound of my own heart beating. I just sat there and stared at her. I was convinced that I had misunderstood what she meant or that I had heard her wrong. What does that even mean? I asked her. She did not look away from me or try to hide her eyes. She stayed brave, even though her voice was shaking. "I have been seeing Jason for a while now," she admitted. "I do not know who the father is yet, and I think he deserves to be involved in this journey until we know the truth for sure." I really expected my anger to take over right then and there. I expected myself to start shouting, to demand some real answers, or to just walk out the front door and never look back at that house again. Instead, I stayed very calm. I unlocked my phone, opened up my photos, and sent her a single screenshot. My phone made a little buzzing sound as it landed on the table right in front of her. She looked down at the screen, opened up the image, and within just a few seconds, all the confidence she had just a moment ago completely disappeared from her face. It was not at all what she expected to see, not even close. Suddenly, she was not trying to explain her choice or defend what she had done anymore. She was just whispering question. "How long have you known about this?" The screenshot was not a private message or something I had secretly grabbed from her phone while she was sleeping. I would never do that. It was actually a copy of the appointment paper for a doctor visit to check on the baby. She had accidentally sent it to our shared email account about 2 weeks before. That paper had one tiny detail that she had not noticed when she sent it. The person to call in an emergency was still listed as me. Right under that, she had written the word husband. I looked at her with a calm face, trying to keep my voice steady. "You told the doctor I was your husband on that form," I said to her, "but today you are asking me to just accept that someone else should have that same place in our child's life. You are doing this before we have even had a real and honest talk about our marriage and where we stand." She lowered her eyes then, unable to look at me anymore. "I never meant for you to find out this way," she said softly. I just shook my head slowly. "This is not really about how I found out." I told her, "It is about the fact that you expected me to carry the heavy weight of a secret I did not even know was there." The silence that came after that was much heavier than any loud argument we could have had. It felt like the air was thick. After several minutes passed, she finally spoke up again. "Jason does not even know I told you yet," she admitted. "I have been so terrified for the last few weeks, just living in fear every single day." I just listened to her without stopping her or cutting her off. She said she kept thinking that if she waited just a little bit longer, she would be able to figure everything out before anyone got hurt. I gave her a sad little smile. "That is the big problem with keeping secrets," I said. "They almost never stay small enough for you to manage them. They always grow until they are too big to hold." Tears started rolling down her face as she told me she had been completely overwhelmed by fear and not knowing what to do. She did not know how to face the results of her choices, so she just kept putting off the talk. Every single day that I waited, she whispered, it just became harder and harder to tell you the truth. I nodded my head slowly, feeling the weight of those words. "And every day that you waited, You took away my own chance to face this whole thing with you in an honest way. I reached across the table and pushed a notepad over to her. It was not some kind of legal paper or a list of demands. At the very top of the page, I had written down 3 simple questions to help us find our way. What do we know for certain right now? What decisions can wait until we have the real facts? How do we treat each other with honesty from this moment forward? She looked at that page for a very long time before she quietly asked if I was going to scream at her. I told her the truth. No, I said, there are just too many important choices ahead of us to make them while we are feeling angry and hurt. We both agreed that the next step was not about guessing or making big assumptions about the future. It was about talking with a group of caring experts, getting the right information, and deciding our future based on real facts instead of being afraid of what might happen. Whatever was going to happen next would be very hard. There was no way around that. But for the first time that day, we were not hiding behind any more secrets. We were finally looking at reality together. We were taking it one honest talk at a time. The next few days were some of the hardest times either of us had ever gone through in our lives. There were long talks, many uncomfortable silences, and moments where neither of us had any idea what to say next. But we agreed on one thing right away. We would not make any life-changing choices based on things we just assumed were true. Whatever the future held for us, it had to start with being honest. My wife told me that she had been living with a lot of guilt long before she finally told me the truth. I kept hoping I would just wake up and somehow know exactly what I should do, she said. I answered her very quietly. The hardest part is not that you did not have all the answers, I said. It is that you try to carry them all by yourself until they became way too heavy to hide. A week later, we went to sit down with a caring expert who could help us navigate these feelings. That meeting was not about pointing fingers or deciding what the future looked like that day. It was about trying to understand how we got to this point in our relationship. The expert asked us both the same question. What does taking responsibility look like to you from here? My wife took a very deep breath. It means I stop hiding behind my fear, she said, and I start telling the truth even when it feels really uncomfortable. When it was my turn to speak, I said that it means making choices based on the facts, respecting what the law and being a parent requires, and not letting my anger decide what happens to us next. It was not a simple talk, but it was the first one where we were both looking at how to move forward instead of just fighting about what happened in the past. Over the next few weeks, we kept talking honestly. We gathered all the facts we needed and gave ourselves plenty of time before making any permanent choices about being together. There were some days when we talked for hours and other days when we hardly spoke a word. But one thing had changed for good. There were no more secrets between us. One evening, my wife looked at me and said that the screenshot did not actually change everything. I looked at her with a curious face. She smiled a little sadly. It was the fact that you stayed so calm, she said. You stayed calm long enough for us to deal with what was real instead of making the situation even worse. I knew exactly what she meant. Being calm had not taken away the pain, but had made a safe space for the hard talks that anger could never allow. Looking back, the image on my phone was not the big turning point. It was just the end to keeping things hidden. The real change happened when we both accepted that avoiding a painful talk only makes it hurt more later on. Whatever happens after a secret comes out depends on the people, what they believe in, the facts they find, and the choices they make. Some people heal and stay together, while others part ways with respect and kindness. In our story, we learned that being honest cannot change what happened in the past, but it can stop new pain from being built on top of old lies. The biggest lesson was not about a single photo or one talk. It was about realizing that the truth, no matter how much it hurts, is the only place where you can make choices that truly matter.